Support for Pop of Culture comes from Stallings Wealth Management. Daniel Stallings, financial advisor. Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors, LLC. Member FINRA/SIPC, a broker/dealer, and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity.
This week on Pop of Culture, art about change.
And changing art.
We'll bring you an exhibition about the civil rights movement.
And a longtime artist who talks about how to dive into the art world.
If you close your studio, no one's going to come and ask you to open it back up again necessarily.
Also, the Tiny Desk Contest is back for 2026, and we'll get tips from the judges themselves.
And a balloon artist. Very brave of them to show up at Pop.
That's coming up.
Support for Pop of Culture comes from Stallings Wealth Management, the Innovation Connector, and from you. With state and federal money eliminated, you are the difference in keeping local programming on the air at IPR. Become a member today at indianapublicradio.org.
From IPR, this is Pop of Culture. I'm Michelle Kinsey.
And I'm Kara DuQuette. We want to be upfront that our first story is pretty heavy, and you'll hear descriptions of violence, including sounds of gunshots.
In August of 1955, a 14-year-old boy arrived at his relative's house in Mississippi. Less than a week later, he was lynched and thrown into the Tallahatchie River.
There's an exhibition at Minnetrista Museum and Gardens that tells the story of Emmett Till and his mother, Mamie Till-Mobley, and how they changed the civil rights movement.
Our producer, Luke Jones, and I took a tour before it was open to the public. Just outside, we met up with Sebastián Encina.
My title is Director of Curation and Exhibition. My role here is to find exhibitions to put on for our audiences and work on all the content and scheduling all those exhibitions to be here.
We asked him how Minnetrista chooses their exhibitions.
First and foremost is the theme appropriate for Minnetrista.
Gotcha.
So if there might be a traveling exhibition of Rembrandts, that's fantastic. It has nothing to do with Minnetrista or us in Muncie. That's David Owsley, Newfield, something like that. So first and foremost, does it make sense here? Is our community going to react to it in a positive way? Secondly, then we look at the space, we look at the costs. We definitely would like some exhibitions that are just a little out of our price range. So we wanted to make sure of that and just make sure that we are the right facility for some of these spaces as well, that we can take care of it, we can properly show those works of art or the history or that. And then the space. There are a lot of exhibitions out there that are 5,000, 10,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And this is a 3,000 square foot space. So we can't fit those in here.
Mm-hmm. Why did you feel like this exhibit was right for our community? Because you said that's very important to see. Is it going to fit? Is it going to be relevant to the community? What are they going to get out of it? Why did you feel this one was important?
This is so incredibly important, and I love that you asked this question, because one of the things that I love about Minnetrista, and having been here just over 2 years, is how much community focused it is. There are so many museums out there that still have that old mindset of, we're going to put the art and people are going to come to us and you should like it just because we said you should like it. Whereas Minnetrista is really about that community involvement and the community buy-in. And with an exhibition like this, it's really important to tell some of these stories that are just too important to forget, because so many of the stories that are part of this exhibition are still relevant today. They're still part of our community, they're still being felt, and they're still having an impact on not everybody, but a good percentage of our community. And since Muncie is such a diverse community with all sorts of backgrounds, this is a story that's still incredibly important to so many people. And this is something that Minnetrista from the get-go, from the time that I arrived here, was really important for us to tell. And we had to share this story with our community.
Mississippi native Winray Gandy describes growing up in Mississippi in the 1960s.
The earliest memory I have is our parents and friends and neighbors teaching us about what we should do and what we shouldn't do. We had to make sure that we behaved in certain ways, and there was a different world, black and white world. if we walked down the sidewalk and a white man was coming toward us, we had to look down on the ground. And if a white woman walked down our same sidewalk, we'd have to walk out in the street. Couldn't walk down the same sidewalk.
So right now we're standing in front of magazine content, different accounts of Emmett's murder. And then there's a warning for sensitive content. So you see Jet Magazine, Look Magazine, Newsweek Life, a lot of other magazines, and then you can choose whether or not you lift up magazine content that included graphic images.
Well, in Jet Magazine, which was primarily read by black people, had the photo, and then Look Magazine here, it says
The killer's story.
made-up story.
Right. And so Jet Magazine actually published a photo of Emmett's battered face, which I'm going to be very honest, I have not seen. And I don't know if I can lift that up, to be honest with you. So I'm going to sit with that for a minute.
Do you want to look at the other one?
Yeah. So this is from Look Magazine. The shocking story of a proved killing in Mississippi.
I don't think I can read most of this out
Nope,
loud.
we can't. We cannot, because it's horrible.
And it's not even the real version, and it's still
Awful.
bad.
Their intention was to just whip him and scare some sense into him.
That's a quote.
Yep. And I know that so many exhibits, when you think of exhibits, you think of light, fun. Here, we're going to go to this exhibit. This is not that. This centers around a horrific part of our history as a country. Why is that important, and how do you deliver it in such a way that it's how do you encourage people to come and put themselves in that position for a very good reason?
And that's very important. I want everybody to know you're not going to come here and come out feeling flowery and birds and bees and it's all really beautiful.
Yeah.
It is a very difficult portion of our history, but it's only just 71 years ago that this happened. So it's not ancient history. It's still current history. People who were involved in this are still alive. They're still out there in Chicago or Mississippi. I want people to recognize that when you come here to this exhibition, it's not going to be, I'm going to walk out feeling awful and tired. There is going to be some of that, but there is hope. The part of this that's really important is out of tragedy, Mamie Till-Mobley was able to inspire change.
Yes.
And that change is still happening. So what I'm hoping is that when people leave this exhibition, they are going to feel hopeful. History is not pretty. There is a lot of ugly stuff in history. And if we just ignore that just to focus on the good things, we risk so much for our future. We risk so much for our present. And that is, I will say that's cowardly. And I think that's incredibly dangerous. And we need to be aware of everything that has happened to get us to where we are. The norms that we have, the laws that we have, the policies that we have, they came from somewhere. And that's usually an ugly past that made the change to be where we are. It's not perfect. There's a lot that we can do, but it's better to go 1 mile than wreck it because we haven't gone 100 miles yet. So let's start off a little bit. Let's learn about this history. Let's not forget it. Through it all, whatever people's feelings are about race relations or about certain demographics, this is a 14-year-old child.
That's right.
This is a kid.
Mamie's Ripple for Justice show begins in 1 minute.
We are now standing in an area that at first seems picturesque, right, Luke? It's video of the Tallahatchie River in Mississippi. And we're surrounded on kind of, on three sides by this beautiful view. And then you look ahead and you realize that this is where Emmett's body was taken and dumped in 1955. And then the sign that was installed in 2018. 2018, by the way, that was vandalized a little more than a month after it was installed.
With bullets.
Yeah.
They're shot.
Our signs and ones like them have been stolen, thrown in the river, replaced, shot, replaced again, and shot again. Every time they tear one down, we're gonna put one back up. We're never gonna forget Emmett.
This is full immersion into that story. And it doesn't just stop in 1955. It continues into the 1960s, it continues to 2000, to the 2020s. And so it gives people a greater sense of the entire story and how this impacted so many people.
History is history. Emmett Till's story is in the past. But what matters now, what are you going to do?
What are you gonna do?
Emmett Till and Mamie Till-Mobley, Let the World See, is open at Minnetrista Museum and Gardens through April 12th. It's recommended for visitors age 10 and up.
This is Pop of Culture. I'm Michelle Kinsey.
And I'm Kara DuQuette. We're coming to you from Audio One in the IPR studios. But for the next few minutes, we're going to take a seat at NPR's Tiny Desk.
The 2026 Tiny Desk Contest is open. And here to tell us all about it, two judges, two experts, two people perfectly familiar, very familiar with this contest, Robin Hilton and Anamaria Sayre. Thank you so much for joining us. I will try not to fangirl too hard.
Yeah. What an introduction, Robin. Are we experts? I don't know.
I feel that.
I don't know. I wonder that every day.
Robin
but
and
thank
I
you for
are
having
just
us,
too
Michelle.
Clueless.
Yeah. No.
I wonder every day, how
it.
did I get this job?
I know.
do
Lucky
too.
you, right? Yeah.
Seriously.
Someday they're going to find out.
Well, I can't imagine that there are people out there who are not familiar with Tiny Desk or the Tiny Desk Contest, but go ahead and fill us in on what the contest is.
Go ahead, Anna.
Okay, the difficult answer. The contest is basically just an opportunity for any unsigned independent artist across the United States to enter a piece of their art for the chance to play their very own Tiny Desk.
Which is awesome. And so this has been going on. How long? When did the contest start?
I think around 2014, so a little over a decade ago.
Yeah, that's a lot of submissions. Right?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think we got 7,500 last year, roughly 7,500 entries. And every year we've set a new record for the number of entries every year. So, yeah, many, many, many thousands of entries.
Wow. What is the process like weeding through all of those entries?
We dub them to VHS tapes, and then we throw them down a flight of stairs. And whatever tape is on the top step. No, it's...
We all sit in a room and Robin makes a couple stupid jokes like that and we kick him out and we actually get the work done.
No, it's an army of people on the team who literally we watch all of the entries and we start winnowing them down. The first pass is just looking for things like, do they meet the minimum requirements? Are they at least 18 years old? Are they from the U.S.? Is there a desk in the video somewhere?
Yes.
You have to play behind a desk. Things like that. And then we take another pass and we just start winnowing it down. And over the course of several weeks, we'll get to the point where there's maybe, a couple dozen that we're all kind of circling, and then within a few weeks after that, then we arrive at a winner.
Mm-hmm. So each of you, Robin and Anamaria, talk a little bit about what makes an act, a band stand out to you as you are watching the videos.
It's so heady and feely and arty, but really it's just the thing that I think makes me feel something. And, that can mean that it's something really impressive musically or has a really interesting arrangement or incorporates cool instruments, or it's something that it's just a beautiful, cutting, emotional voice and a guitar that I can't stop thinking about. And that's really what it's about, is finding something that feels unique and like only that person or that band who's doing it could really be doing it in the way that they're doing it, and that more people need to hear it.
It's a gut reaction, really, more than, it's not like we're looking for a bunch of boxes that we're trying to check. It's really just a gut reaction, an emotional reaction. Like Anamaria said, I'm looking for something that will make me stop what I'm doing and pay attention, because I'll listen first blindly. I won't watch the video. If it grabs me, then I'll start watching. And if I find I just can't stop watching, if I can't look away, then there's something there.
Mm-hmm. Robin, give me an example of like the bands that come to mind when you think about the ones that have grabbed you and you can't get away from.
Well, I think of someone like Tank and the Bangas. Their entry, I remember, that was one year where we all knew almost immediately when we saw it. I remember with their entry, I was probably 10 seconds into it, and I thought, this may be the one. It was just instantly grabby. But then we get artists like, last year there was one who didn't win, but I really fell for, an artist named FC, EPHSEE FC, who entered this really incredible song called Malachi the Uber Driver, and I was listening, not watching. And I was maybe a minute into it or so, and I thought, wait a minute, what are they saying? And I started paying attention more to the story that they're telling in the song. And I went back and listened again, and within like 30 seconds, I was sobbing. It was so beautiful. And yeah, they got very far in the process.
Wow. Anamaria, what about you?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. This is my first year officially judging in the sense what I've done in previous years. I know. Big year. What I've done in previous years is done kind of like that initial filtering work, which I actually really enjoy also. You come across a lot of, Robin, you probably miss these because they never make it. They never make it to your desk, but wow, there's some really fun ones. I mean, you get
funny too. Like those, there are some of the best ones, like they're never going to win, but they are such a joy to watch.
They're passed around among everybody.
I was going to say, my family always knows when it's like Tiny Desk Contest judging time, because all of a sudden I'm just sending all these links. I'm like, you guys, you have to see this. So yeah, it's been a whole spread of them that I can't remember, because it was a beautiful, joyous moment of seeing them, and then they went away.
Yeah. So while we're encouraging musicians to apply for the contest, talk a little bit about what they get out of a win at the Tiny Desk Contest.
I think most importantly, they get to play their very own actual Tiny Desk concert.
You can really stop right there. I mean, isn't that enough? My goodness,
I know. I think
fantastic.
That kind of is enough. It's not a special off to the side one. It's just a normal, the same one that Justin Timberlake did and that Usher did and that Bad Bunny did. It's a Tiny Desk. And then we take them on a 10-city tour. And they also get paired up with a mentor to kind of help them navigate, where they're at in their career and where they want to go. And I think that's a pretty key part of it too.
Oh, nice. That's very cool. I think one of the ones that I remember the most recently, like their big Tiny Desk moment, was Philharmonic. That was an amazing, wow. And it translated really well to a national audience. You would not know that this band had not been doing this at a very high level for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that's true of a lot of the artists. They're unsigned, but a lot of them have been working really hard at this for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do acts need to do in order to apply for the contest? I know there's a quiz now on the website to see if you're eligible.
Yes, so you can walk through that quiz if you want, just to make sure that, it makes sense for you to enter. But for the most part, the qualifications are pretty simple in terms of what they need to have. We want them for sure to be unsigned. Unfortunately, we don't take international entries, so they do have to be within the United States. But otherwise, it's just submitting one original song. Have to include a desk in that video somewhere, but it should be pretty simple, hopefully.
And don't worry about whether or not it's super professionally shot or anything, or whether you've got a big backing band, or it can be you by yourself with just your guitar or whatever instrument you play in your bedroom, and you can shoot it on your phone.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to talk to us about the Tiny Desk Contest. And I'm so jealous of your job after it closes on February 9th, when you get to sort through, 8,000 this time? 9,000 videos?
We'll see.
Well, best of luck finding the new winner of Tiny Desk Contest. Thank you so much again.
Thank
you, Michelle.
I'm Michelle Kinsey.
And I'm Kara DuQuette. Whether you work at a tiny desk or a warehouse, you can bring pop of culture with you. Pick up the Pop of Culture podcast at indianapublicradio.org, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Jeffrey Gibson is a Choctaw and Cherokee artist known for his bold use of color, pattern, and materials. His work blends indigenous history, contemporary culture, and personal identity to create art that's both joyful and deeply thoughtful. Jeffrey Gibson will be the featured Arts Alive speaker at Ball State University this February. But first, he's here to talk with us on Pop of Culture. Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So this college campus thing, is this something you do on the regular? Visit college campuses and talk about your art?
I used to do a lot more of it. I have not done it in a couple of years, really. I've also taught for a very long time, and I also took about almost a 3-year break.
From speaking engagements as a whole, or?
Mainly from teaching, but speaking engagements. It's been very busy the past couple of years, so I really slowed down on speaking.
Mm-hmm. So for the Ball State event, what are you looking forward to sharing with the Ball State audience?
I actually really like young people and college-aged people. I'm turning 54 in March. And so I really feel the generational divide, and I know I experience the world differently. And I really enjoy hearing what they're thinking, what they're paying attention to, and what they're making.
Interesting. So you like kind of the give and take. So the Q&A portion will probably be the most interesting part to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think especially, I'm a painter and a sculptor. I work with my hands. And I think, I'm not someone who uses AI. I'm not somebody who uses a lot of digital technology.
Yeah.
And so thinking about how they're thinking about making, how they're thinking about art and the impact of art experiences, the art world's very different now than it was when I was in my 20s.
Mm-hmm. So as an artist these days, with all of these different vehicles or ways to get your art out there, how do you break through the noise?
I personally continue to advise people. One, I think being an artist is extremely difficult. It's a really hard thing to do. No one, and I tell people this all the time, if you close your studio, no one's going to come and ask you to open it back up again necessarily. You really have to push it every day by your choice, that you're going to get up and make something. And unfortunately, it can't be dependent on an audience. It can't be dependent on a buyer. It is one of those things which you really have to believe that what you're doing is important and valuable and worth your time and effort.
So talk to me about the early years. When did you realize that this was going to be your path, no matter how difficult?
Any day now, any day. No, but it's kind of true. I mean, I think I spent so many years, and I'm talking, when I finished high school, I did not know. I knew I wanted to be an artist. I didn't know how to say that out loud. So I ended up studying anthropology, archaeology, and my third major was painting. And I was kicked out of the University of Maryland. I was asked to not return because I wasn't going to class. And I ended up going to a community college. And it was there that I really felt the freedom to just pursue what I wanted to. And I was in the studios all the time, became friends with all of my studio art faculty. And then from there, transferred to the Art Institute of Chicago. And that was sort of that was the beginning of this kind of independence of making and being in a community of other makers. Then you go to New York and you hash it out every single day. And I was broke for a number of years and nearly filed bankruptcy and worked 70, 80 hours a week. And you're so in it that it's difficult to see yourself from any kind of third perspective. So then any small win, an exhibition, a small sale here and there, somebody who believes in you, for me, it was always enough to continue, and there's been numerous times when I was almost going to walk away and I really couldn't find satisfaction doing anything else. And I would find myself making again, painting again, drawing again, and imagining. And then I would come back to it. And it was really in 2012, I kind of imagined this was going to be my last exhibition I was going to do. And it was at that show that 2 commercial galleries approached me, and I got my first critics pick in New York City.
Wow.
So, and I was 40 at the time. So, it's sort of like from there, I still felt like, you're running a marathon. I would say probably the pinnacle, of course, is, being in Venice and representing the US. I couldn't really deny that, okay, I've made it. I finished the first leg of the marathon.
Let's talk about Venice, the Venice Biennale in 2024. You were the first Indigenous artist to represent the United States. I mean, just that sentence. Let's just let that hang there for a minute. That's huge. Tell me how that felt and how it felt to be there representing the United States.
It felt, to be quite honest, it's overwhelming. The excitement of it kind of creeps in bits and pieces, but there's so much work to do, and it's on such a public international stage. The pressure is, for me at least, felt really high, high. And it was a large team that was assisting me to complete everything and to get the installation up. Really, the satisfaction of that happened very recently, after it had come down, after the exhibition had traveled to the Broad. We did a ton of press. I did a lot of public speaking specific to the Biennale. But, it's like you're building something so intently that you don't have any opportunity to look up, So it's really only in retrospect, and especially after the catalog came out, which is a beautiful catalog. And we worked with an independent designer named Dylan Fraccaretta, and he did an incredible job of really assembling like a kind of yearbook that really walked through every part of that installation and the community that helped make it happen. That was really a moment where I can absorb how huge it was, how grand of an experience it was.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the preparation of that, and maybe that kind of goes into, every time you're putting together an installation or an exhibition. What's that process like from kind of idea to when you finally say, okay, this is ready?
Yeah. Well, I originally had a first iteration of a proposal that I went to Venice. I traveled there to look at the pavilion, to walk through it. And I knew in the first 5 minutes of being in the building that my proposal was wrong. It would not work.
Wow.
It didn't make any sense to have it there. And so I came back to my studio and I sat down, and I also realized, this wasn't an exhibition that was happening in the US. This was an exhibition happening for an international audience. And I grew up living abroad. Part of my life was abroad in Germany and Korea, and I went to school in the UK. And so I think this understanding of my subject matter from an international perspective was something that really pushed me to rethink what I wanted to show. And I decided to look back at my kind of history of work, like the previous decade. Like, what are the pieces that I had made that I felt really engaged audiences in a way that I wanted to engage an audience at the Biennale? The challenge was really to cohere it right into an exhibition experience for people, but also something that I felt was, for many people, an introduction to my work. And also something, I think, being Native American, something that I could feel really proud of, to have Native American people here, be able to see through images or through video clips and understand that I was really there on behalf of people other than just myself.
Absolutely. And I love that, because then I think your art resonates with more people. It opens it up to more people.
Yeah. I do think that, I think whenever you're talking about a very specific culture, people can become afraid to speak about it for fear of getting it wrong or for fear of offending somebody. That's never anything that I've either been afraid of or have I tried to discourage in people. I'm much more of a fan of, ask questions, talk to people about it, share your experiences.
So you are a firm believer, and I know I've read it before in some of your interviews, that you really believe art can bring people together.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think art, there was a comment made sometime during, I think it was during COVID, about, imagining the world without art having been a part of our histories. And that to me is just, we're including architecture and music and sculpture and painting and illustration and writing and storytelling. And it feels, when you put it in that perspective, it feels like something which is so inherent to being human.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. Very, very well put. So that brings me to this question. How are you feeling about the state of the arts these days? It seems, every day there's another cut to some sort of arts of funding here, there, and everywhere. How do you feel as an artist seeing this unfold?
Truthfully, I think about why somebody would want to discourage expression. I think that I wish I could impart to those people who maybe don't understand its importance or its impact that it really is such a rare situation that is one of acceptance and allowance. And I understand it can feel intimidating. I remember being a young artist in New York City and going to openings and feeling like you were trying to introduce yourself to art communities. It is so intimidating. You feel like there's this world that everyone is in on the secret and you don't have a clue. But I will say that once you start asking questions, and really the price of admission is just choosing to engage. And once you start engaging, people are very friendly and very open to other people coming in with a different background. I've never experienced another kind of community like it, and I wish that for anybody, to be quite honest. I wish everybody could experience that.
Ditto. One final question, Jeffrey. What's bringing you joy in the studio these days? What are you working on?
It's a challenging time, I think, to try to think about what it means to make something, and whether we make something that is, illustrates a reflection of the times we're living in, or do we think about bigger issues, bigger topics? For me, I'm really enjoying thinking about time and how time functions in terms of how we mark time, how we imagine the limits of time, or for some people, the limitlessness of time, and how it relates to the environment. And when I say environment, I mean everything from like the local environment to the global environment to the universal environment. I think there's so many things that we don't understand. And for me, there's something very comfortable about feeling so small in the face of this immense universe. There's something very comforting about that for me right now.
Jeffrey, thank you so much for taking time to talk with me today. Really looking forward to your visit in February to Ball State University.
Great. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey Gibson will speak at Bruce Hall February 4th. The event is open to the public.
We've spoken to artists working in all kinds of mediums.
Absolutely. Sculpture, iron, huge pieces of public art. What else?
Rug hooking.
That's right.
Silk painting.
Yes.
But this time, for the first time, we've asked a balloon artist, what are you working on?
Today on Waywo, I have Samantha Rowe, a balloon artist who owns Blank Space Balloon Art in Modoc, Indiana. What are you working on, Samantha?
Oh, great. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course.
So right now we are planning graduation open houses for people. I've got some Valentine's Day specials.
So sweet.
So I made a bouquet out of heart balloons. If you can imagine flowers in a bouquet, but switch the flowers out with heart balloons.
That's adorable.
I added little butterflies in one of them, and they're kind of wrapped in floral paper. We're also doing some senior night options for people. So it's just a small little stack of balloons on top of each other with a basketball, for example. I have the cutest little foil number balloons that go on the basketballs just to add a little pop to the senior night tables. Virtually anything that anybody asks me to do, I am 100% up for the challenge of making new things and creating art out of balloons.
That's awesome to hear that you're willing to push yourself and expand new horizons with balloon art.
Yes.
Balloon sculpture is your specialty. What is your favorite sculpture you've ever made?
Oh my goodness. So the hair salon that I go to, their name is Deep Roots Salon. And my mom was like, it would be really cool if you figured out how to make a tree out of balloons.
Ooh.
And I was like, I don't know if I can do that, but we'll see. So I did. So she recently celebrated a big milestone in her business. And so I made a tree out of balloons. I would say that was my first time actually sculpting something. And then from there, it kind of took off. So since that point, I've made a palm tree. I made a giant diamond ring, which was one of my favorites. The biggest one that we just wrapped up last November was an Eiffel Tower with a water fountain in front of the Eiffel Tower, and then we had street lights that were around the room. It was incredible.
Was that a project that made you feel really proud of being a balloon artist?
Yes. It was something that challenged me. It was something, when the organization came to me and asked if I could do it, I was like, yes, I will figure it out. What started small in my head ended up being about 15 feet tall.
Wow. So really, the Eiffel Tower.
Yes, it was much bigger than I imagined it would be, but it also needed to fill the space in the room. So I was very happy with how it turned out.
That's amazing. What would you say were some challenges you faced while trying to do something so large?
I think figuring out the framework is maybe not my strong suit. So I have family that help me. So my dad helps me transport, especially with the Eiffel Tower. I took my idea to my husband, and he can basically weld anything that I want. So he was like, okay, let me think about this. And he built my frame bigger than I needed it to be, but it ended up working out because then I could just wrap the frame with the balloons. And once I got going and figured out my method, then it's super quick in my mind for somebody that works with balloons all the time. Now, if somebody that didn't work with balloons, they would be like, no, thank you. But it's an art, definitely, and it's a learning curve because you have to have the right balloons and you have to have them inflated to the right amount. So, like if they overinflate, they'll pop.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to underinflate everything to give room for expansion. So I've definitely learned a lot of things along the way that I did not know before.
So when it comes to like installing such a large sculpture, do you bring in the base and then you build it there, or do you transport it with the balloons on it?
Kind of both. So if I can transport everything made ahead of time, I try to do that as much as possible just because it saves me time on site. So the Eiffel Tower, for example, I had 4 separate legs and then I had a top. So I had 5 pieces. So I had my top completely ready to go. I had my legs maybe 75% of the way prepped. So all I had to do when I got there was assemble. And then I was able to finish it once it was assembled.
That's really cool. It's something that I've really never heard about before. So when I saw your website and saw the huge Eiffel Tower, I was like, wow, she means business.
Yes. I don't do anything halfway. I like to go above and beyond for people because I don't want them to be disappointed. I like setting that up and then going and getting them and being like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready for you to see it, because I want to step back and watch their reaction to what I've promised.
That's really cool. I've also seen that you do things like arches, tabletops, and you mentioned your senior stacks. How do you decide how to arrange the balloons, what colors to use?
I work with the customer, first of all, and I ask them, what are your preferences? Do you have color choices? Do you have ideas that you've liked? And I have them send me those ideas. Some people will say, here's what I've seen, and I'll kind of mock something up so they have some sort of visual before they see the final product. Other people will say, you know what, I don't care. Here's the theme. I trust you. Do what you want with it.
I bet that's fun.
I love those because then I get to play. And I'm blessed. I work out of my home, so I'm very blessed that we have a full basement that has kind of turned into my studio.
Oh, nice.
So I can just go downstairs anytime, and I like to call it therapy because it has kind of turned into therapy. But I just play with balloons and I figure things out. It took me a couple of days to figure out how to do the balloon fountain. So that was trial and error a few different times, but I'm fortunate enough that I can do that and not mess it up the first time.
What led you to making with balloons in the first place? I'm curious.
Oh my goodness. So it was kind of by accident. I have one daughter and I always have gone over the top for her birthdays. And so she was turning 16. We're big Taylor Swift fans in our house, so we did an Eras Tour birthday party.
Oh, nice.
And I got this wild idea. I was like, let's make a balloon arch. Never done it before. Ordered the cheapest stuff. It took me 3 days to build half an arch. And I was like, this is wild. Why did I decide to do this? Well, then people came over and they loved it.
I'm sure.
And then my neighbor was like, hey, that's amazing. If I order the supplies, will you do my graduation open house? Because she was graduating that year. And I was like, yeah, no problem. So we did that. I posted a picture on my Facebook and it kind of just went wild from there. People started messaging me. They were like, hey, we don't like working with balloons. We would seriously pay you to do this for us. And I was like, okay, could I do this as like a thing, as a side hustle? And it's kind of expanded from there. I've been able to meet so many people. Been able to create so many things, bring so much happiness and, really up people's photos when they're taking them and they fall in love with their backdrops and those memories. It just kind of has spiraled.
I think that's really touching, like the way you've made it kind of a community support as well. So what I'm hearing is balloons are your love language.
Kind of, yes.
What's a balloon sculpture you would love to build in the future? Like, do you have a dream sculpture you'd like to make?
A rainbow.
Oh, that's so cute. I would love to see that.
I keep seeing them. That's something I have been wanting to try to make. I've also a birthday cake. A giant birthday cake is also something that I want to try to make.
Would you make it with like a slice out of it, or would you make it like a decor?
I would make a decor, like a 3-tiered.
Wow, yes.
A 3-tiered birthday cake, maybe even with a hole in the middle for somebody to jump out of.
That would be fun.
Yes.
And like it has a little top.
Yes.
Where could listeners find your balloon art if they wanted to check it out themselves?
So I am on Facebook. If you go to Facebook and you search for blank space balloon art, my business page should pop up. I also have an email that's blankspaceballoonart@gmail.com.
Thank you so much. I've been so happy to have you pop up on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting.
It's that time, Kara.
Oh, yeah.
Time for the arts calendar. You know what? You don't have to go all the way to Shipshewana for arts and crafts and things. Oh, no. Shipshewana on the Road stops by the Delaware County Fairgrounds Saturday and Sunday, January 31st and February 1st. Check out crafts, gifts, and food from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday.
Nice. And this one is going to be so apropos.
It is indeed.
The Meltdown Winter Iced Festival is on this weekend, January 30th through 31st in Richmond. The city center will come alive with more than 20,000 pounds of frozen fun for all ages with one-of-a-kind sculptures. Watch an ice cream eating contest, cheer on your favorite team during the Meltdown Throwdown ice carving contest, and finish the evening on Saturday with fireworks. I love fireworks.
Yes, I'm cold. I just had a shiver up my spine, but in a good way, because that sounds like a fun event.
Fire and ice.
That's right. Shining Star, a tribute to Earth, Wind, and Fire, will perform Saturday, January 31st at the Gas City Performing Arts Center. It's going to be a boogie wonderland. See what I did there, Karen? Yeah. And the Loving Spoonful will perform Saturday, January 31st at the Paramount Theater in Anderson. Not a cover band this time, the real deal.
The Muncie Children's Museum is presenting the show Reptiles Around the World at 10 a.m. Saturday, January 31st. Scales and Tails will bring 2 reptiles from each continent for you to meet. There will also be fun facts, games, and more.
I love me some reptiles. That sounds great. The Tom Shaw Memorial Concert featuring Ball State Jazz Ensembles will be February 3rd at Sursa Performance Hall at Ball State. The concert begins at 7:30 p.m. and will include standard jazz favorites and original compositions in honor of BSU alum and trumpet player Tom Shaw.
And don't forget that February 5th is First Thursday in downtown Muncie from 5 to 8 p.m. Check out Makers Market and hear original music at the Songwriter Sessions. You know a little bit about that.
A few things, yeah.
More at downtownmuncie.org.
If you have an event, let us know at indianapublicradio.org/contact, then click Pop of Culture.
Support for Pop of Culture comes from Stallings Wealth Management, the Innovation Connector, and from you. With state and federal money eliminated, you are the difference in keeping local programming on the air at IPR. Become a member today at indianapublicradio.org.
And that's our show. Our digital content god is August Wilde.
This week was produced by Luke Jones, who melts down weekly.
We had production assistance from Andrew Montavon.
Our audio fellow is Maya Doss. Our show was hosted by me, Michelle Kinsey.
And me, Kara DuQuette. Pop of Culture is a production from IPR on the frozen campus of Ball State University. This is Pop of Culture from IPR.
Perfection. I apologize. Shut your face hole.
That was my perfection ding.
Yeah, that's exactly right.